Caitlin. Last season, Clark took cheap shots, being compromised and having to deal with defenders who believed they could intimidate. Their method of preventing her, although I suppose formally, that era is over. The Indiana Fever's roster is stacked with 3 enforcers, not just one, who will put up with any of that bullshit. No longer.
So the Indiana Fever have got their enforcer. They have got their enforcer for Caitlin Clark. And I'm not gonna lie, like, when it comes to Caitlin Clark and their enforcer, last year everyone was talking about the median enforcer.
Natasha Howard enters. Daniela Bonner and Sophie Cunningham, 3 seasoned athletes who perform within edge and don't hesitate to engage in physical contact. If those who detested Clark believed they could continue to hit her with harsh fouls, and they're going to receive a nasty. The message is obvious and loud as you wake up. If you pursue Clark, you will need to take care of them first.
The closest thing they had was Erica Wheeler. That was the closest thing they had for someone to defend Caitlin Clark, was Erica freaking Wheeler. Maybe Tammy, but Caitlin Clark was getting hit a lot. She was getting hit a lot early, and they needed their Charles Oakley.
This action goes beyond simply adding. The goal of talent is to make a statement. The Fever is here for more than simply competition. Their goal is to rule, and with these new members, they've assembled a team that able to play rough, fast, and most essential, keep their best player safe. Officially, Clark's bullies have been placed on notice. Then how will these specifically? The Fever is transformed by 3 game changers into one of the riskiest groups in the. Let's dissect the WNBA.
Sometimes you need one of those players on your team. You need one of those enforcers. Every good player, by the way. Every good player, every good team that is a super duper star. Most of the time have enforcer type players.
The most amazing thing about Caitlin Clark, the WNBA's most exciting rookie in years, makes her debut on the court. Season. Electric fans provide the energy. Everyone's and their chairs' edges, anticipating that she would perform, but rather than a seamless entrance into the league, why does she receive such penalties? Needless interaction and a degree of physicality that was almost overt, focusing on what was taking place here.
That's all I see. They try so long to get respect for women's basketball, and then they treat it like a junior high school girl's locker room. Junior high school girl antics on the court.
Let's break it down. This wasn't your average rookie. Clark was receiving treatment for a level of violence that exceeded competition. She was hit all the time. Includes body checks, fouls, and cheap shots that occasionally didn't belong in the game. She seemed more like she was entering a wrestling arena instead of a. This is the location of the basketball court. Surprising to learn that Clark wasn't just another rookie getting used to playing physically. She was picked out. Don't tell lies. Astounding 177% of all egregious fouls were committed to the WNBA last season. That's not just difficult against her defense, which is a blatant sign that players were intentionally being rough her up.
What little girl wants to grow up and play in a league where you're targeted like that? How do you sit here and profess and demand that everyone take women's sports seriously when you can't even take it seriously enough to not act like a junior high queen on the court? It's stupid. That's so dumb. It looks like a soap opera.
And taking the lead, the charge, which is the Chicago. It's astounding that 80% of those flagrant one team committed fouls on Clark. It's not merely a coincidence. Rather, it's a assertion that they weren't merely attempting to protect her, they attempted to send a notification. But why was it intimidating? Annoyance, or simply old school endeavor to reduce an increasing star? For whatever reason, it was clear that the presence of Clark was causing some gamers uncomfortable.
Clark! Shimmer!
Among the worst instances was thanks to a photo of Angel Ree herself driving through the lane, eyes Clark fixed on the basket, and all of a sudden she is knocked to the ground by Ree. Fans clutched their breath as the arena fell silent. The hit was so hard that she wouldn't get up. Even commenters began to raise questions. Whether it had gotten too far, but Clark, she dusted and has a different build. Herself off, stood up again, and continued to play as if nothing had happened.
I think we went up really strong a lot of times and we didn't get a lot of calls. And going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people got a special whistle.
That's what makes Clark unique. Calmness under, while others were arguing pressure. If she kept the hits or if they were too much. Her concentration after taking a blatant Chundi Carter-Clark's cheap shot. The answer was straightforward, which is just not playing basketball, but having to persevere. There are no grievances or reprisals, only a mental fortitude that makes legends.
And Clark. I mean, that's clearly a foul, which was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary? Kennedy Carter.
However, Clark demonstrated that she could. The front office is experiencing a fever. Realized they couldn't allow her to endure and further season. They made bold moves since they were unprotected, and with the inclusion of several significant Indiana law enforcement is ensuring that no one is avoiding punishment for harassing Clark. These enforcers, who are they now and how are they going to alter everything? Let's examine the Indiana Fever's dynamic. In addition to CL,
and Clark.
The signing of Natasha Howard represents a massive step forward for the Indiana Fever and their quest for a championship. In Howard, the Fever gain a three-time WNBA champion, a Defensive Player of the Year, an All-Star, and a veteran with more than 300 games played.
Natasha Howard is not your average. She is the Indiana Fever's addition. Enforcer the group sorely required As soon as she entered the changing area, it was obvious what Caitlin Clark is. No longer a simple target for anyone who, unaware that Howard had played in the WNBA 3 times. Champion, a former member of the defense, the year, and a guy who possesses the type of toughness that transforms the whole identity. She isn't interested in tricks. She is present to ensure that the days of bullying of Clark on the court is above.
But all of that, and we haven't yet touched upon what Howard does best: defend. Howard was named Defensive Player of the Year in 2019 and has finished in the top 10 of the Defensive Player of the Year voting 3 times in her career. Howard has averaged at least 1 block and 1 steal per game in each of her last 7 seasons. And that versatility is really what makes her a weapon on defense.
Clark from the previous season encountered the relentless physicality of protectors who believed they could rough up without repercussions, but now the same defenders will need to, before doing those same things, give it some thought. Howard's antics are plenty on their own to change the status of power. On the court behind Clark, she immediately honors authority, but Howard isn't just. She's a game changer when it comes to implementing both ends of the floor. She averaged 17.6 last season, 6.7 rebounds, almost 3 points, and assists per game, which is elite production, and she can do her best. Extend the floor using Howard's skills. She's going to hit from beyond the arc to give Clark even more room. Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell to function.
Last season, with a minimum of 25 games played, Natasha Howard was one of just 13 players to average 18 points per game. She was one of 16 players to average 7 rebounds per game. And the list of players to average both 18 and 7 last year, short and elite: Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Nafisa Collier, Brittany Griner, and yes, Natasha Howard.
However, defense is where Howard really excels. Shines. She won for a reason. 2019's Defensive Player of the Year. She is a nightmare for opponents who are attempting to. She has the length to score in the paint, physicality, as well as an assertive manner that makes anyone's life miserable who tries to confront her. And with regards to defending her colleagues, to put it mildly, She has a track record of speaking up when it's crucial, and this is what may be the most significant aspect of Howard's arrival of the playoffs. Feel the fever as a youthful squad member, having a lot of promise but going deep. Playoff runs require a certain amount of poise and the kind of leadership that only veterans possess. Howard has performed in more than 50 postseason matches and such. Experience is priceless. She understands what it takes to triumph, and she's using that mindset to the state of Indiana.
But that wingspan and 6'2" height allows her to be disruptive defensively around the rim on opposing bigs too. In fact, Howard will enter the 2025 season 25th all-time in blocks in WNBA history.
Howard's level of enthusiasm is equal to, in her own words, "I'm excited, Fever fans, to go back to Indiana with my expertise and resilience to the group. I wish to assist Caitlin with her Fever compete at the greatest level possible," which is precisely what she intends to do with this action. Isn't only about keeping Clark safe. It's regarding raising her. Howard is aware of what it takes to win, and she's now, in order to demonstrate to Clark and the Fever how to conquer Indiana with her in the mix, is prepared and not just fighting back, to assume control.
Caitlin Clark was getting hit a lot. She was getting hit a lot early, and they needed their Charles Oakley. You've got that in Sophie Cunningham.
Indiana is where Sophie Cunningham is going, and the WNBA recently received a lot more. Intriguing if Caitlin Clark was required to. Someone to control the bullies. She just got her while draining threes. The Fever wasn't merely searching for. During the offseason, they were searching for. In Cunningham and for tenacity, they discovered both.
There are so many videos of Sophie Cunningham just starting brawls.
Some may be pondering whether Sophie Cunningham was indeed allegedly enticing Clark to visit Phoenix. As it happens, Clark had other ideas. Before leaving for the West, she ensured that Cunningham joining her squad wasn't merely this was a calculated random signing. Fever required a person who could bring enthusiasm and unwavering fortitude. And Cunningham fulfills each of those requirements.
Sophie Cunningham, in general, is just wild. Wild is the best word I can use to describe Sophie Cunningham. And, it's carnage. It's carnage a lot of the time when Sophie Cunningham gets involved with anything. The amount of fights that Sophie Cunningham has been involved in is mental.
Let's discuss what makes Cunningham is a wonderful match for. Prior to the shooting, Indiana isn't. She is an excellent player who is just tough. Last season's beyond the arc marksman, she and Clark shot 37.8% from beyond the arc, managing the offensive aside from that figure. To reach even greater heights, consider defense as attempting to protect Mitchell and Clark while from 3, Cunningham is spotting up. I wish you luck with that.
He hits a 3, Maisha Hines-Allen fouls her, and then tries to step over, and then Sophie Cunningham grabs her leg. Nobody's going near Maisha Hines-Allen, but no, Sophie Cunningham will start the fight. The refs are trying to break it up. None of the Mercury players are going to go near Maisha Hines-Allen. They're scared. She's scared the bejesus out of them. Maisha Hines-Allen is one of the toughest players in this league. Sophie Cunningham going head to head straight with her.
However, Cunningham does more than just shoot. Gives her an advantage over a mean streak. She plays the kind of game that, during conversations with her and her back it up, and remember that she's actually a black belt in Taekwondo. So are any defenders considering acquiring this season Clark is getting more physical, they might wish to reconsider.
Like Sophie Cunningham, there are so many things where it's part of it her fault, part of it not her fault, but she will not back down. She will not back down under any circumstances from anything. And that is what the Indiana Fever need. If somebody hits Caitlin Clark, if somebody does what Victoria Vivians did to Caitlin Clark, it's not going to be Caitlin Clark that's getting involved to be teed up. Sophie Cunningham's in there. You take the technical foul. You take it.
Let's explain how this action alters the Cunningham joins Fever's team as a adaptable wing with the ability to shoot, defend, and give the season leadership. She 8.4 points, 3.9 rebounds, and 2.0 on average. Last season's assists per game weren't superstar figures, but what exactly? She won't demand the ball, which Indiana needed, but she'll make it when she gets it. Defenses are compensated.
Like Sophie Cunningham is guarding the screen here, and she just takes a hard hit. Nothing major. So she's down. And then, after taking a hard hit, just gets back up and laughs.
Above all, Cunningham is the kind of athlete that flourishes in high-pressure situations. She's tough and knowledgeable, and she never gives up. From a task such as striking a clutch number 3, locking up a rival, protecting or intervening when things go, Chippy is constantly prepared.
She takes the hard hit and goes down, obviously, gets back up and just laughs. Like, that's a legitimate thing where you're like, okay, yeah, this is a person who is just, like, there is a toughness there with Sophie Cunningham. And, like, she's not scared.
And let's discuss spacing. When Cunningham is present, defenses cannot simply give up on Boston and Clark. Should teams attempt to duplicate Clark, Cunningham will be prepared and waiting on the perimeter to force them to pay for her flexibility. The floor will cause the fever. Offense much more hazardous.
So yeah, like a solid signing for what she does on the floor. But like be protecting Caitlin Clark type thing.
Naturally, the most important query is how will Cunningham's tough, abrasive manner, will she be able to merge with Clark's skill? The person who must ensure the Fever's protection. Will things get a boost from their superstar? One thing is certain, it's a bit too fiery. Indiana has become much more difficult, and the WNBA's other teams had better pay attention.
She's just a smart player. You already see what she's done in her rookie season, and I think she gets the ball to people in the right positions to help them be successful, so that's huge. And I'm hoping that I can give her a little bit more leadership and knowledge for her to understand this league a little bit better. And like I said, when playoffs hit, she'll be...
Dananna Boner isn't joining the Indiana Fever as a replacement for. She is here to redefine the roster spot, championship level into the team's culture, experience, and transform this youthful squad, becoming a formidable force. She's already demonstrating that the Fever isn't. This is no longer a rebuilding project. With the WNBA, they are here to win now. Wins, numerous all-star looks, and is standing as one of the attackers with the greatest versatility in the league. Boner provides an abundance of possess leadership qualities and an attitude that our first game is dominated by shouts. Indiana, we must win. Can you imagine? Bonner entering the court next to Aaliyah. Boston's Fever team is holding paint removal. Caitlin Clark planning the attack. Kelsey, Sophie, and Mitchell pounding down shots. Cunningham supplying that flaming vitality. Add the elite defensive clutch from Bonner today. Score and unparalleled flexibility. The floor, this is not merely a tiny. This is a full improvement. Change. Bonner's presence changes. Indiana went from being a dynamic young team to an authentic contender for the championship.
Leadership and a mindset that screams dominance.
Our first game in Indiana, we got to get a win.
Now,
However, what really makes Boner, not only is her skill set exceptional, but it's her dedication to her teammates. Not merely agreeing to a contract and leaving. By her actions, she's actively attempting to improve. Clark, Boston, and Mitchell has already reached new heights, examining the breakdown of their tendencies, film, and determining how to optimize. The difference lies in their strengths. Between an experienced person who wants to complete during their career and a leader who is resolute to have a long-lasting effect, the Fever, everything they were simply lacking. The final example of veteran leadership and tenacity in assembling everything. And Boner, she could be the piece that's missing, that ultimately transforms this group into a powerhouse such as
What excites you the most about this team that you're going to be joining?
I mean, they have dynamic pieces in CC and Kelsey Mitchell and AB, Lexi Hall. I mean, they have a great core, so why not just add to that and try to, take us to the next level in the playoffs. They were in first round, and I played against them in the first round, and the way they came back the second game, it just makes you excited to, okay, I want to be a part of that. They didn't lay down and quit. They came back and actually try to beat us early, that next game.
Moreover, there is the link between Caitlin Clark-Bonner and Boner have played with some of the best guards in history. She notices something in the history of the WNBA. Clark's uniqueness extends beyond her depth, shot at range, or her capacity to produce. It's her relentlessness that makes it impossible. Clark plays competitive fire within. Give her shoulder and bone a chip. Recognizes her ability to exert. Finest athletes to improve even further, and she is now taking over to mentor Clark, on the path to becoming a superstar.
Like I said, hopefully I can make her job a little easier and she can make mine a little easier. But I think she's a great person, and we, been kind of connecting here. We had a great workout this morning, and it was fun. She's a fun kid.
Recall the previous season. There was a persistent knocking fever. The games they played were the key to victory. They appeared to have moments of unstoppability where their capacity was unquestionable, but what they were missing was encounter someone who is aware of it. Requires a postseason victory in order to close games under duress and to take the lead in a team when things are at their most critical. She's not exactly what Bonner provides. She's just eager to play with Clark, resolved to improve her even further.
Kind of went on this crazy run, and they were the most well-gelled team at that time. They went from the bottom straight, and they just kept trending. And it was like one of those teams you're like, man, you don't want to really see them in the playoffs. So we got the matchup, and I think our experience helped us very well. But that second game, they came out, and it was like, they just kind of went on this trajectory that was just like on the rise, and it was literally fever on the rise during right after that All-Star. So that's exciting. That's exciting for me to see, and that kind of helped me with my.
Therefore, what does Bonner's arrival actually mean? In a nutshell, everything for Indiana, for a group that is still figuring out how to win her championship and playoff experience. Mindset could be the last component of the deep puzzle she's been working on. She has competed in playoffs under strain, and she's now bringing all of that for a rising club. This is more. It's more than just a veteran signing. Declaration that the fever is over. While we wait for the future, it has already here. The fever recently added a successful candidate to a list that was already somewhat full of Boner, Clark, Boston, Mitchell, a young talent. This team is more than just entertaining to watch, is a group capable of reaching the final query is, are you prepared for the show of the Indiana Fever since it's arriving quickly?
That experience to a young, maturing team, what can you provide?
I'm hoping that I can provide a little bit of leadership, but I feel like they're a team that last year helped them a lot and understand the dynamics of playoffs. It's a whole different ball game when playoffs come, and I feel like they're a young team, but they're a good team, and hopefully I can just provide the knowledge and explain playoffs to them a little bit better so we can be better prepared and don't get punched in the face the first game. And it's hard to come back when you do that the first game. It's hard to come back and try to win 2 straight against a veteran team. So I think they got
the Indiana Fever just demonstrated their supreme strength. The WNBA as a whole is on high, warning that they've transitioned from rebuilding to contenders for the championship overnight. The Caitlin Clark's pushing days completed the bullies who believed they may get away with taking cheap shots since they're going to have a severe wake-up call with Cunningham, Natasha Howard, Sophie, and Deanna Boner is contributing their resilience and feel the fever. Now Clark possesses the ideal balance of technique and grit, an army at her back, and this group isn't merely seeking to compete, they're searching. It's obvious that Indiana wants to dominate. The message is not here to be polite. Rather, they are here to take over. Are you thrilled? Please let us know. Comments such as subscribe and turn on all alerts to ensure you don't miss anything. select the video that appears on the screen and I'll see you at the following one.